I do have one.
Go
It's
ahead.
not really related to a theological thing. It's just I know you've been into like evangelism, theology, things like that for a long time. Would you have any tips for like ways I can evangelize to people and most meaningfully guide people to Christ?
Well, it depends on your audience. I can't generalize. For example, if I'm dialing with a Muslim, I will explain the faith to a Muslim differently than I explain the faith to a Jew or a nominal Christian or a pagan. You have to take your audience into context. And number two, you have to meet them where they're at. Some people are not looking to be argued into the kingdom. Some people are miserable, depressed, and they despair of life, and they need to know there's hope. You got to meet people where they're at. So you can't generalize.
Uh,
So if I have someone who's lonely and sad and depressed and despairs of life because he or she feels no one cares for them, the way I evangelize is to be Jesus to them by loving them and spending time with them and doing life with them and then bringing them into the community of believers so they can have a family. It's your audience. Even Paul says to the Jew, he became a Jew. To one under the law, I became one as under the law. To one who was without the law, I became as one without the law, meaning he took his audience into consideration. That's why if you read the book of Acts, when he preached to the Jews, he used the Old Testament. When he preached to the Greeks, he didn't use the Old Testament not once. Acts 17, 16 to 32. What he did was he appealed to what they believed, what they assumed, and took those beliefs that agree with the Bible and built on them to bring them to the biblical revelation. But he not once quoted any Old Testament passage because to them it was meaningless. See, Paul was a master communicator. Paul was a master evangelist. So he knew if I quote Genesis to these Greeks, they're going to laugh at me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take what they believe that will now be a springboard to the truth of the gospel. So he saw they had an altar to an unknown God. He goes, you know that unknown God? This God that you know is there, but you don't know much about him? I'm going to tell you who he is. And he used that. But he did not quote the Old Testament, but he assumed the Old Testament. And he even went as far as quote their own pagan writings. For in him we live and move and have our being, as even some of your own poets have said, for we too are his offspring. He's quoting Greek pagans that taught a truth. The true God is our father, we are his offspring. But you know what's ironic about this citation?
hmm.
The pagan author was talking about Zeus. He's saying we are all the offspring of Zeus.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I can understand that because I've studied Islam a good bit. That's a lot of the apologetics I've done. I've talked to a few Muslims. Um, and there's a lot in there that I think was inspired by God to lead people away from the falsehood,
Not
like Muhammad
inspired by
confirming the
God.
gospel.
Not inspired by
Well,
God.
yeah, not
A lot
inspired,
of
but
inspired truth that Muhammad plagiarized,
yeah.
right? We want
Mhm.
to be careful. Not inspired by God, but inspired truths of God that Muhammad plagiarized, because Muhammad was inspired by the devil. But Satan himself will take the truth of God and pervert it with falsehood.
All right.
Can I give you another example of meeting people where they're at?
Sir, absolutely.
Sadducees. They didn't believe in the resurrection. They didn't believe in existence of angels or spirits. They believe you die, you cease to exist. And they only accepted the 5 books of Moses, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my, this is killing me. How do I know that? It's because Acts 23, 8 to 9 says, the Sadducees say, there is no resurrection or angel or spirit, but the Pharisees acknowledge all three. Then a great clamor arose, and certain scribes of the Pharisees group stood up and contended, we find nothing wrong with this man. What if a spirit or an angel has spoken to him? By the way, did you notice the side issue? The Pharisees, of which Paul was one, believed, like Jesus, angels exist and spirits exist. So let me ask you a question. Since the spirits are different from angels, what are these spirits that they're referring to? Not angels,
Demons?
right?
Demons or people?
Say it again.
Would they be people or
Yes.
okay.
The spirits of those who've died, right?
All right, yeah.
Well, notice what they believe. They believe not only an angel can be sent, God could send the spirit of a dead human. What if a spirit angel has spoken to him? What's the big deal? We believe in that. You may not believe in it. You caught it?
Yeah.
And are they right? Yeah. Because who appeared on the Mount of Transfiguration? and Matthew
Yeah,
17:3.
Elijah and Moses.
Was Elijah, who appeared in a dream and a vision to Judas Maccabees, Onias, and Jeremiah the prophet. Now, what's my point in mentioning them? Sadducees believed you die, you cease to exist, there's no resurrection. They also didn't accept any other books except the 5 books of Moses, like the Samaritans did. So now they're going to try to trap Jesus. They're going to try to trap Jesus, and they're going to ask Jesus a question. According to the Levirate law, Deuteronomy 25, verses 5 to 10, if I am married and I die childless, if you're my brother, you have to now marry my spouse, get her pregnant with a child, and that child will be then credited to me to continue my line.
Was this the one of the
resurrection
parable
was
of the
absurd,
woman?
right? Resurrection was absurd. You die, you cease to be. Guess what they tried to set up Jesus with?
They tried to ask about the woman who kept getting divorced.
7
her
brothers married her,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Who
Okay.
will her
The
husband be
same
in
day,
heaven?
some Sadducees came to him saying, there's no resurrection, right? So a man died, childless, his brother took him. 7 brothers in total. Now, in the resurrection, whose wife will she be? Now, notice Jesus quoted Exodus 3, verse 6 to prove his case. Why did he not quote Isaiah 26:19 or Deuteronomy 12:2, which talks about the resurrection, that those asleep in dust awakening?
He appealed to the knowledge they already had.
Why did he quote Exodus 3:6?
To appeal to the knowledge they already had and what they already believed in, to prove that they
Because
didn't
they
know
didn't believe in the
how to
other books.
Yeah.
So what did he do? He appealed to those books that they accepted as authoritative to refute them. That's the principle.
All right.
Hope that helped you. Okay, young man. Now that I know.
Thank you very much, Sam. I just want to say God bless you. God bless everyone.